Well, hello and welcome to Inspiration Bite-Sized. And as you all know, we're looking at unpacking certain aspects of the kingdom and how different people are involved in kingdom life. And trying to work, especially with people who are not church leaders, but actually are Christians involved in the community in a variety of ways. And today I'm really pleased to have as our guest Councillor Dr. Andrew Miller, who's a county councillor on Gloucestershire County Council, as well as involved in many other things. He represents the Tuffley division, which is within Gloucester, and he was elected, having stood against with four main party candidates. He was elected with 52% of the vote, which is quite impressive. So welcome, Andrew, as our guest today. And you currently live within Gloucestershire, but you have a very strong connection with the southwest of England.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us something about that?
Certainly. So I'm actually a Cornishman. I was born in Cornwall, grew up in Cornwall until I was about 10. We were in Weybridge and then Padstow. And then at the age of 10, my parents moved to Crediton in central Devon. That was for work, and I stayed there till I was 18 and went off to university. And since then I've lived in many different parts of England. I've lived in Scotland for 3 years in St Andrews while I was doing my PhD. And so I feel I know this country quite well, but I've got a very close affiliation with Devon.
Yeah, I must ask you, what's your PhD actually in?
So it's in something called plasma physics, which is like the fourth state of matter. So if you imagine a gas, but it gets so hot that the individual bits break apart from each other. The electrons break away from the atoms, and it becomes really easy to conduct. And it's a very complex physical medium in which different things can take place. And the application is to something called nuclear fusion. Now, you say the word nuclear, people get very, very worried, and they think about Hinkley Point C down in Somerset. But nuclear fusion is a very different type of nuclear process. It's about bringing together rather than splitting apart.
That's quite impressive to have a doctorate in that. I must admit, it's not a subject I know anything about whatsoever, and maybe I should have asked you beforehand, then I wouldn't have asked you the question. So you're currently involved in the local church. What sort of church do you belong to?
So I belong to Abbey Church, which is an independent church. Most of the elders have come from either Baptist or Brethren backgrounds. And it was originally a church plant from Hillview Evangelical Church, which is bigger and a bit better known than our church. So if you know Gloucester, you know the churches in Gloucester from maybe a while back. If you think Hillview Evangelical Church, we're still quite closely associated with them. And we're quite a small church. We're a family church of about 80, 90 people.
And you attend there with your wife?
That's right, yes, yeah. Or we attend on Zoom.
Yeah, we're all on Zoom at the moment. So yeah. Okay, so sort of picking up your sort of your connections with Devon and Cornwall. You went to school in Crediton.
That's right. Yes, I was at Queen Elizabeth School for all 7 years, and in my fourth year, I sat next to a chap who might be familiar to you called Patrick Kimber.
Yes, we all know Patrick Kimber. Yes.
Yes. So he, I think we sat next to each other for a whole term without realising each other were Christians. And until one night I went off to an ISCA meeting in Exeter, and I saw Patrick there. So obviously the next day I was keen to find out why he was there.
And wasn't he your best man, or you his best man? Or?
No, he was my best man at my wedding when I married Victoria back in 2001. So we got married at Emmanuel Church in Wimbledon. And yes, he was my best man. And you couldn't wish for a finer best man.
Yeah, because I don't even know, because I'm a West Devon Borough councillor, and my ward actually, because Patrick's a West Devon Borough councillor as well, his ward's actually next to my one, so yes. I know him very well.
You had to fight an election. Patrick didn't, did he?
That's right. I think he's actually had 2 elections when he hasn't had a fight. So
yes, return unopposed.
Yes, hasn't gone through the excitement of having to put yourself forward. Good. Okay. So you're now a county councillor.
That's right. Yeah.
You've been a councillor before, is that right?
That's right. So I've lived in many different places, and I've stood for the party in Swindon and Wokingham and Nottingham, but it was in Wokingham where I got elected, in fact, twice. I got elected to just as the councils were going to unitary authorities. So the old Berkshire Council was being split up, and the powers were going to the 6 district councils. So that gave me an opportunity to get involved in county level things, even though I was originally elected as a district councillor. And at that point, I decided that the most important thing really was children's education, because I feel that education is really important for our society, because how we educate the children is going to completely affect how our society is going to behave and the decisions it makes in 20 years' time. So for me, that was the most important area to get involved in.
So you actually have a role within the county council now, don't you?
So I'm now at the county council. I'm the chair of the Children and Family Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which covers education, although most of the education responsibilities have gone out to individual schools, particularly academies. But we do have a role in looking at education, and we can take things at a holistic level. So we can look at things like school exclusions, for example, or school bullying, and we can look at thematic issues like that. But my biggest area of focus in the county, I think, really is on children in care and care leavers. So, as you know, some years ago, you and I were both on the Impact course about leadership in public life. And during that course, I met up with some of the fellow course members to look at this topic in more detail. And what we realised is that children in care were given quite a rough deal in life. Now, the Bible tells us to look after the orphans, but our modern orphans are often not children whose parents have been killed for one reason or another, because we have a better health system now, but those children who aren't being parented effectively. What we felt is that those kids need a better deal in life, and particularly when they actually left the care system. So 20, 30 years ago, children would leave the care system at 16 or 18, and they would be basically dumped with a little bit of money and perhaps in a flat, and then told to fend for themselves. But of course, without that structure of the family around, and without those relationships, that guidance, all the rest of it, many of them floundered. It's ripe for those people being exploited by unscrupulous people, for example. And what we're trying to do is to give these kids, the chance in life that they would get, most probably, if they came from what we might call normal families. So for me, if you like, it's about fairness and justice.
That's brilliant. So I take it funding's an issue?
Funding is always an issue. But we have overspent on our budget. There's no hiding that, but the money has to be made available. It's one of those services which we call demand-led, which means that if the demand increases, we have to find the extra money to support that.
That's quite a subject we could spend a lot of time unpacking, can we? And because it affects not only every part of the United Kingdom, but probably every part of the world as well.
Yes.
I'm always interested in looking at people's books in the background, and when I'm but of course yours are a little bit too far away. And basically, having told me what your doctorate's in, I'm probably not going to find anything of interest for me on that bookshelf. Because also, you're a mathematician as well, aren't you? So
that's right. You will find some political biographies on that.
Oh, fine. Because as I say, because you did, is it right? You went to Pembroke College, Cambridge?
Yes. So there is a biography of William Pitt the Younger, who was a prime minister who went to our college. Also a biography of William Wilberforce, who is one of my heroes, and several biographies of Gladstone.
You mentioned William Pitt the Younger, because William Pitt the Elder was actually the Member of Parliament for Oakhampton. So,
I know that.
There you go. Whether we actually visited here, we never know. But Back in the days of rotten boroughs. But something else I'd like to pick on, because you do have a passion for the disadvantaged. You mentioned the children, certainly for them. But you did raise £12,000 for Open Doors.
Yes.
Quite a spectacular way. Tell us about that.
So I joined up with an Open Doors adventure run by a company called 4M, and they took us out to Jordan, and we raised money by running various sports events, actually in the desert in just outside Madaba, which is a town or city really, not too far from the capital. So I ran a half marathon. I have to say there was some keener people there. So some people ran a marathon, and some people ran, or 3 people attempted the ultra marathon, which is 1.5 marathons, and 2 people managed to complete that. And there were also some people doing cycling. They were cycling 120k.
Yeah, so what were the temperatures out there?
We started in the morning. So for those of us doing the half marathon, the temperatures, I think they started off at about 16 and they probably got up to about the low 20s. But those people doing marathons who were taking slightly longer, I think the temperature got up to about 24.
That's quite impressive. Yeah, I think I'd have passed out probably in the first mile. But I remember when I first met you, which is a few years ago now, you used to travel to London quite a lot.
That's right.
For business. Do you still involved in business in London, or?
That's right. Yes, I actually work for the government. I work for an arm's length body which subsidises renewable energy, low carbon electricity. So things like offshore wind farms, some onshore wind farms. Also Hinkley Point C, although it's not renewable, it's a low carbon technology. And the reason that we're doing that is because there's a growing realization that the world is emitting too much carbon dioxide. And I feel as a Christian, we've been given guardianship of this planet. There is a creation, it was created good, but it's our responsibility not to muck it up, not to put too fine a point on that. And the best way of doing that is by introducing much more low carbon electricity into our electricity system. At least that is one way that we can help, not necessarily the only way that's needed. So for me, it's about using my skills, and I'm a mathematician, I've got some physics and engineering training as well. I've been in the electricity industry for most of my life, but this was a way that I could focus on doing something that I knew would improve our creation, God's creation.
That's great. I mean, I could talk to you about that a lot more actually, because I am the chairman of our council's climate change and biodiversity group, so maybe I'll come back to you that separately at some time. But coming near to the end now, I did notice that you're quite into chess. Chess is one of your passions and hobbies, is that right?
That's right, yes. I play it online these days.
Yeah, it was interesting, so I spoke to David Barker, who you know, a couple of weeks ago. I interviewed David, and he was quite into chess as well. I don't know if the two of you ever realised that.
Yes, I played him on Saturday actually.
Oh, did you?
Yes. It was actually quite close.
Yeah, so that means you lost.
No, I won.
Oh, oh. Very humble in it as well. Fine. Okay, we're getting near to the end. So, do you have a favourite song, hymn, worship song, or anything like that? Or
well, I'm really keen on Stuart Townsend, but if I wanted to pick my favourite, I think it would probably be Matt Redman, A Thousand Blessings.
Great.
It just speaks about joy and thanks to the Lord, and the tune's great too.
That's great. Okay, well, I think we've, Andrew, it's been great talking to you. We've got to the end now. A lot of people can listen to this now, and I'm trying to unpack it all because you're involved in so many things. But it's great to hear about your passion for the children, and also for climate change, biodiversity, many other things as well, and what you've done for Open Doors. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. So
blessings to your church, to the Church of the Nation.
Yeah, bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.